Chapter 18. After Damon's kidnapping, Mikhail quickly ushered Isabella into his office at the club. It was an interesting study in contrasts. Sleek modernist furniture alongside what appeared to be centuries-old artifacts. A Bauhaus-inspired glass desk sat beneath what looked like a medieval tapestry depicting a forest hunt, the faded threads still vibrant enough to show wolves pursuing deer through ancient woods. Tactical maps of Atlanta covered a large glass table in the center, and various locations were marked with symbols she didn't recognize. Triangles, circles, and crescents in different colors that glowed faintly under the recessed lighting. The air carried a complex mixture of scents: leather-bound books from the floor-to-ceiling shelves, the lingering smokiness of an expensive whiskey, and something distinctly masculine and wild that she was beginning to associate exclusively with him. The space was cool, but not cold, and the climate control maintained perfect comfort, despite the summer heat radiating from the Atlanta streets above. A collection of weapons, some modern, others looking eerily ancient, lined one wall in a display that would have been museum-worthy if it didn't radiate lethal purpose. Polished steel and blackened metal caught the light, some blades bearing inscriptions in languages Isabella didn't recognize. The gleam of silver edging on several pieces suddenly held new significance, now that she understood its effect on werewolves. Her fingers absently touched the knife Mikhail had given her, still secured at her waist. Its weight was unfamiliar, yet reassuring, the handle warm from contact with her body. Next to the knife was a sidearm that matched the model of her service piece. Mikhail had kindly replaced the one confiscated from her earlier and supplied her with several magazines' worth of rounds. Mikhail stood with his back to her, his shoulders tense beneath his fitted black shirt as he spoke quietly into a phone. The fabric stretched across his broad back as he shifted, revealing the powerful musculature beneath the civilized veneer. Even without supernatural hearing, Isabella caught fragments. Perimeter secured, scouts looking, silver protocols in place. His posture was unmistakably that of a commander, spine straight, head slightly inclined, weight balanced to move in any direction instantly. He ended the call and turned to her, his eyes flickering briefly with that inhuman red before settling back to their usual ice blue. The shift reminded Isabella of embers cooling after being stirred. The low lighting caught the planes of his face, casting shadows that emphasized his cheekbones and jawline. "The pack and our allies are mobilizing to find Damon," he stated, his deep voice carrying both authority and concern. "How many?" Isabella asked, stepping fully into the room. The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow felt definitive. A boundary crossed between her old world and this new reality. 23 wolves capable of combat transformation, plus human allies. Mikhail moved toward the map table, beckoning her closer with a subtle tilt of his head. His movement was unnaturally smooth, reminding her that despite his human appearance, something entirely different existed beneath the surface. "Victor will have fewer pack members but more mercenaries, humans who face our kind for profit." Isabella approached the table, the glass cool beneath her fingertips as she examined the map. She noted the precision of the markings and the careful attention to elevation changes and sight lines. Tactical considerations she recognized from working with law enforcement. The map seemed to be layered, digital elements overlaid on traditional cartography, creating a three-dimensional effect that showed Atlanta's surface and its hidden underground networks. These are all lichen safe houses? Her index finger hovered over a cluster of blue triangles near Midtown, and the slight tremor in her hand was the only outward sign of her fatigue. Locations relevant to pack security, Mikhail corrected, his tone shifting subtly to what Isabella was beginning to think of as his teaching voice, patient but authoritative. The subtle notes of an Eastern European accent became more pronounced when he spoke formally, hinting at origins far from Georgia. Some are ours, some are neutral territory, some belong to other supernatural entities. His finger traced a line along the city's underground systems, the pad of his finger making a soft sound against the glass. These are evacuation routes if the club is ever compromised. The casual reference to other supernatural entities sent a small ripple of disquiet through Isabella, a chill racing along her spine despite the room's comfortable temperature. But she compartmentalized it, one revelation at a time. Her eyes narrowed as she processed the map's complexity, the display's colored light casting a blue glow across her face. "You've been preparing for a head-to-head confrontation for some time," she said. "Since I took control from Victor 18 years ago." Mikhail's voice carried a weight of history that seemed impossible for someone who appeared barely in his mid-30s. The shadow that passed over his features aged him momentarily, lines appearing at the corners of his eyes that weren't visible before. He's been waiting, watching, gathering strength. He paused, studying her face with an intensity that might have unnerved her days ago. "I didn't expect him to use human victims to draw me out, but taking Damon is from the same playbook as his murders." Isabella's jaw tightened involuntarily as she thought of the bodies from her case files. Throats torn, blood drained, lives ended as pawns in a supernatural power struggle. The crime scene photos flashed in her mind. The unnatural pallor of completely exsanguinated victims, the distinctive triple claw marks that now had context she couldn't have imagined when she first saw them. "And what do you believe?" Isabella asked, meeting his gaze directly. Her instincts pushed for clarification, for the truths beneath official positions. The soft hum of the climate system was the only sound in the room, creating a bubble of quiet intimacy despite the tactical environment. Something shifted in Mikhail's expression, perhaps surprise at her directness. Few people likely questioned him so bluntly. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost imperceptibly. "I believe adaptation is a strength. That coexistence serves us better than dominance." His eyes held hers steadily, allowing her to search for deception. The grey of his irises seemed to contain flecks of silver in the dim, unnaturally clear and sharp light. The old ways, Victor's ways, led to witch trials, to hunters, to near extinction in some regions. Isabella nodded slowly, processing. Her legal mind saw the parallels to human society, competing philosophies of governance and power. Damon is human. Victor will have no regard for his life, she said quietly, her voice cooling as she focused on her immediate concern. The thought of her assistant brought a tight knot of anxiety to her chest. "To draw you in, to draw me out." Mikhail's jaw tightened and a muscle flexed along the strong line. "Victor knows I've been interested in you." "For how long?" Isabella felt a strange flutter that had nothing to do with fear. She crossed her arms, partly defensively, and partly to conceal her unexpected reaction. "Since you took the Brennan case last year, a 17-year-old boy accused of killing his abusive father." Mikhail's lips curved slightly, softening his usually stoic expression. The slight change transformed his face, making him appear younger and more approachable. "You were the only one who believed his claim of self-defense. You found evidence that everyone else missed." Isabella remembered the case vividly, her dogged pursuit of truth that ultimately exonerated the teenager. She'd spent nights poring over medical records, finding the pattern of hospital visits that established the abuse. The memory brought with it the sensory recall of late nights in her office, the taste of cold coffee, and the strain in her eyes from examining hundreds of documents. "You were watching me because of a case?" Her voice held skepticism tinged with curiosity. "I was watching you because you pursued justice with the same intensity as an alpha protects their pack." His eyes held hers, unblinking. The intensity of his gaze made her feel as though he could see through the professional veneer she presented to the world. It's rare to find that quality in humans. The compliment warmed her unexpectedly, a flush spreading beneath her skin. Isabella tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "And now, Victor is using that quality against us both." She frowned, refocusing on the maps with determination. "What's your plan for finding Damon?" "My best trackers follow his scent trail, but it's contaminated with vervain and silver, Victor's work. The GPS signal from his phone is our best lead, but it could be a trap." Mikhail's fingers tapped a rhythmic pattern on the glass table, the first sign of nervous energy she'd witnessed from him. The soft tapping created a counterpoint to the subtle hum of electronics in the room. Isabella studied the water treatment plant location marked on the map, the abandoned facility rendered in stark blue lines against the darker background. She could almost smell the chemical residue permeating such a location. The stagnant water, the rust and decay of neglected infrastructure. It will absolutely be a trap. She tapped the location, her manicured nail making a sharp sound against the glass. "This facility has multiple levels, water channels, and chemical storage areas. Perfect for an ambush." Mikhail nodded, his expression grim, the tactical lighting casting deep shadows beneath his brows. "Which is why you won't be there." Isabella straightened, her spine stiffening as her voice cooled to the tone that junior prosecutors feared in the courtroom. The air between them was charged with sudden tension, like the atmospheric pressure change before a thunderstorm. "If you think I'm sitting this out while Damon—" "I don't expect you to sit anywhere," Mikhail interrupted, matching her tone with an authority that likely went unchallenged among his pack. His voice deepened slightly, a sub-vocal rumble underlying his words that wasn't quite human. "But I won't risk you walking straight into Victor's hands." "I wasn't asking permission," Isabella retorted, her chin tilted upward despite their height difference, the movement catching the light on the proud line of her jaw. "Damon is my responsibility. I got him involved in this." Mikhail stepped closer, his presence suddenly filling the space between them. She could feel the heat radiating from his body and smell that distinctive scent stronger now, like forest after lightning, primal and electric. The fine hairs on her arms rose in response to his proximity. "And you are my responsibility. I don't recall agreeing to that arrangement." Isabella held her ground despite the primal part of her brain screaming about the predator inches away. Her hands remained relaxed at her sides, refusing to acknowledge his attempt at intimidation. The subtle sounds of the city filtered through the windows. Distant sirens, the hum of traffic, the mechanical symphony of urban life continuing obliviously above their underground war. Something that might have been admiration flickered across Mikhail's face. The slight widening of his eyes, a subtle relaxation around his mouth. Most humans can't even maintain eye contact when I'm displeased. His head tilted slightly, assessing her with new interest. I've stared down cartel hitmen on the witness stand. Your glowing eyes trick doesn't make the top 5 most intimidating things I've faced. This wasn't entirely true, but Isabella would rather die than show weakness now. She lifted one eyebrow in a subtle challenge, a gesture perfected through years of courtroom confrontations and Star Trek viewing. A low sound rumbled from Mikhail's chest. It took her a moment to recognize it as laughter. The transformation was striking, softening the hard angles of his face, crinkling the corners of his eyes, revealing perfect white teeth, with canines just slightly too pronounced to be entirely human. You continue to surprise me, Isabella Santos. The tension between them shifted, transformed into something entirely different, something equally dangerous but far more alluring. The air seemed to thicken, carrying an electric charge that made Isabella's skin prickle pleasantly. Isabella forced herself to step back, the soft carpet yielding beneath her heel as she refocused on the tactical situation rather than the electric current humming between them. Damon needs both of us. Your strength is my knowledge of how criminals think. Mikhail tilted his head, considering. The movement shifted shadows across his face, momentarily highlighting the inhuman perfection of his features. You've formed a profile. Professional interest replaced the momentary warmth in his expression. Preliminary. Isabella moved to the map again, deliberately creating space between them. The cool glass beneath her fingertips helped ground her in the present moment. He's methodical, theatrical, and values symbolism. The ritual aspects of the killings. The way he left markers for me to follow. He wants an audience. He wants recognition for his artistry. She spoke clinically, distancing herself from the horror of the murders with professional detachment. Most importantly, he wants to humiliate you by proving he can take something that matters to you. That fits Victor's psychology, Mikhail agreed, his expression dark. He's been more beast than man for the last several centuries. He is becoming what we refer to as a revenant, a mindless animal. Then we should use his weaknesses against him, Isabella said, the strategy forming as she spoke. Her fingers drummed against the glass, mind racing through scenarios. He wants to draw you into a confrontation on his terms. Instead, The office door swung open with controlled force, the polished wood smacking against the wall with a sharp crack that made Isabella flinch. Katerina entered with more fury than her norm. Her athletic frame moved with contained power beneath practical, tactical clothing, the matte black fabric absorbing light rather than reflecting it. "Alpha," she said, her Eastern European accent pronounced. "I ask your forgiveness for not keeping the humans safe. I should have had backup also watching." She knelt and bowed her head. "I will turn over control of this mission to Mikhail if that is what you would prefer." The atmosphere in the room changed instantly, the air seeming to grow heavier as Mikhail's posture shifted subtly. his casual, authoritative stance transforming into something more primal. Mikhail brushed off her apology and said something softly that sounded like it might have been in Russian. Katerina lifted her head, relief flickering across her sharp features. "What are your orders, Alpha?" Mikhail moved to the weapons display, his fingers trailing along the edge of a particularly wicked-looking blade. "We're not waiting for Victor's next move. Every hour we delay gives him more time to hurt Damon. Or worse." His voice carried a cold certainty that made Isabella's skin prickle. "And for all we know, he has the police officer, Harper, as well. We hit the water treatment plant after dark. Full assault." "That's exactly what he wants," Isabella protested, though she understood the logic. In her experience, kidnappers rarely kept victims alive long once they'd served their purpose. "Perhaps. But Victor underestimates human ingenuity." Mikhail's eyes found hers, something like pride flickering in their depths. "And he certainly underestimates you." Katerina was already pulling out her phone, fingers flying over the screen. "I'll coordinate with the pack. What about approach vectors?" "Northern and eastern flanks. Leave the southern route open. If this is a trap, I want Victor to think we're falling for it." Mikhail selected 2 silver-edged knives resting on the edge of the display, testing their weight with practiced ease. "But we go in prepared for anything." Isabella watched him arm himself, noting the lethal grace in his movements. "And if Damon isn't there? Then we will make Victor or one of his people tell us where he is." Mikhail's promise was soft and absolutely terrifying. Katerina's phone buzzed, and her expression went rigid as she read the message. The scent of her sudden tension cut through the room's atmosphere like a blade. "Alpha," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "We have a problem. The Crimson Moon Pack just sent their response." She held up her phone, showing a formal message that made Mikhail's jaw clench visibly. "They're refusing to honor the mutual aid agreement," Katerina continued, her tone flat with barely contained anger. "Ezekiel says they won't involve themselves in what their Luna calls an internal succession dispute until the leadership question between you and Victor is permanently resolved." Mikhail's eyes flashed red briefly before settling back to grey-blue. 20 years of alliance, and they choose now to remain neutral.